Good day, ladies and gents. This is Sarel van Grennen, aka Mr. VG, and this is an exciting time with some really crucial, important mathematics. We are looking specifically at the geometry of parallel lines and questions about this. So let's have a look, first of all, at the theory that you should know. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, please go and watch. F, U, and N. Fun. Maths is always fun. So this is the basics of our geometry that we will be looking at. So let's start with a question. If I look there and I say, well, AB is parallel to CD, and I've got a transversal line, that BD, that cuts through those parallel lines. What can I say about the value for x? Well, this is actually quite easy because I'm going to start by highlighting my parallel lines. I'm going to look at my f, which is the first one, which is nice. It's just flipped around. And it says there that angle B is equal to that angle at D, that's 60 degrees. And that's as simple as that. So that's what we're going to write for the examiners. So let's start by saying to them, okay, well, x must be 60 degrees. That's our statement. But what is our reason? Corresponding angles. And please, please, please remember that AB is parallel to CD. You've got to state it there. Otherwise, you're going to lose 1 mark. Now let's look at a bit more of an interesting one. What if I give you this question like this and I tell you solve for x and y? Please go for it. Try it yourself first before you look at the rest of the video. Well, first of all, I'm going to highlight my parallel lines and write out my 3 theorems that I could possibly use. Now, I'm ignoring the F. You see, I've scratched it out. Why? Because EF is just like that. It's not extended further. So there's no F that forms, not even lying flat or anything. Okay? So if I look at the U, I can go and say, okay, I can maybe try and see that x and y and 65 must be 180 degrees. But it's a bit dodgy because there's now x's and y's and a 65. So I'm rather not going to do that. So I'm rather going to look at the n. Okay? I'm going to look at the n and say, well, that x must be the 40 degrees. That is my starting point. So if I look at that, I'm going to say, well, x must be 40 degrees, y alternate angles because DE is parallel to FG. Again, remember those basic steps. Write down your theorems. Ignore what you can ignore and use only what is necessary. Write out your statement, write out your reason, and then you've solved if there is an equation to solve. So now x is 40, so I'm going to write that in on the sketch. Now this takes me towards solving y, because now actually I can use the u. I'm going to write down my statement that x plus y plus 65 must be 180 degrees. Why is that? Because it's co-interior angles, because DE is parallel to FG. Remember, you've got to specify which lines are parallel. Now, x is 40, so I'm going to substitute that in. And I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. So y must be a wonderful 75 degrees. Easy and simple as that. Remember, if I'm going a bit too fast for you, Try it yourself first and then come back and look at the video and see whether you understand it or not. Let's have a look at the last questions for this lesson. This is now a wonderful, typical exam type question. So you please go and try it yourself. What is step 1? Write out your theorems. So I'm going to write out fun talks. I am including the T, the O, the X because I mustn't forget about them. I love to highlight my parallel lines and see, okay, what can we use? Well, let's start with the F. I've got an F there. Okay, I've got an F there. And those two red bar or red angles are the same. You might not see what I'm seeing, but I see amazing things on the horizon. Let's carry on. What does the U say? That the 2x, the y, the z must be equal to 180. Adding up, the sum must be 180. Again, a bit dodgy because there's x's, y's, z's. Not going to use it initially. But then, what about the n? There, the z and the 50 degrees is the same. Because, just going to highlight this for you also in green here, because there is a z there. So let's start there, because that's an easy one. Easy marks, first of all. Z must be 50 degrees. Y, alternate angles. Next up, remember to note your parallel lines. Next up, we are going to say, okay, if those two angles are the same, let me write it in on my sketch and let me try something else. Now, I'm going to go towards the F, which said that 2x must be equal to x plus 55 degrees because of corresponding angles. At this moment, take off your geometry hat, put on your algebra hat, and solve for x. So I'm going to get all the x's to one side. So x must be 55 degrees. Ladies and gents, we love to ask these kind of questions where you've got to solve equations and then actually write in the values on your graph. Don't forget to write that in. Now, last but not least, I'm going to try and solve y. So I'm going to use that the 110 degrees plus the 50 plus the y must be equal to 180 degrees because of co-interior angles. Again, you could have used angles on a straight line as well. You must find a way that works for you. Just use the right reason. Now I'm going to solve for y. 180 degrees minus 110 minus 50. So y is 20 degrees. And this is as simple as easy as that. Ladies and gents, this is Mr. VG. Please go and practice these sums. Make sure you get it right and have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. Cheers.